Hey guys, a lot of requests for this one, my Cyclone Facebreaker Max Block build. So this is my favourite build so far of this league, and I've played this build for 3 weeks, and that is an extremely long time for me to play a build, and that is because it's just so damn strong. It's 79% block chance and spell block, so, you know, we're very hard to kill, and then my DPS is around 15 million, so very, very high DPS. And I have quite a bit invested in it, I won't lie. I probably have about 110x. However, you don't necessarily need that. You can still make a decent version of this with a slightly lower budget, so it should be fine, and I'll give you some alternatives in the video. The main weakness is the damage over time ground effects, but aside from that, we can do pretty much anything except Uber at Zeri because of the reflect. So yeah, let's get into it. I'll see you in a sec. Alright guys, let's jump straight in and start with the skill, which is Cyclone. So Cyclone is a channeling attack movement skill. The channel this skill to move towards a targeted location while spinning, building up stages whilst constantly attacking enemies in an area around you. While channeling this skill, you cannot be knocked back. So if for whatever reason you've never seen Cyclone before, this is what it looks like. This is with the Celestial MTX. And you literally just backhand mobs as you go along, so it's very cool. Now as for the gear, we have a bunch of staples that cannot be replaced. Starting with the Facebreaker Strat Mitts. So the ones I'm using have Curse with Vulnerability on hit and 799% more fizz damage. If you're on a budget, just pick up the highest possible more fizz damage ones you can get. Do not worry about the vulnerability. And do not buy gloves with vulnerability on that have below about 770 more fizz damage, as they actually are weaker than just normal Facebreakers with max rolls. And the max roll ones without the Corrupt are about 40c, whereas if you try and buy them like this, these ones cost me 15x, so just be wary of that. Now, the best insight you can get would be Vulnerability and +1 Frenzy, as well as 800% more Fizz, but not very necessary, and this will honestly be enough. Moving on to our next irreplaceable, which is the Abyssus. And Abyssus just adds way too much damage, nothing can compare to the Abyssus, with the drawback of taking 40% increased physical damage. Now, it doesn't matter too much, to be honest, because we have an insane amount of blocks, so we're going to very rarely get a hit. It adds 40 to 60 fizz damage to attacks and a huge crit multiplier, which is what makes it so good. Try and pick up one with the 40% increased fizz damage taken. It might be a little bit more expensive, but you will definitely feel it. It will stop you getting one hit. So yeah, the best enchant you can get on it is the 15% increased Cyclone attack speed. That might be a bit pricey. I wouldn't worry about it too much if you're on a budget. Just pick up a normal one with at least 40% increased fizz damage taken roll. You should be good to go, to be honest. So moving on to our next irreplaceable, which is the Rigwald's Curse Wereclaw Talisman. A very, very cheap unique. You want to pick it up with the 36 global crit strike multiplier, which is about 40c when I bought this one. So it gives you a base crit chance to your unarmed attacks, which will be 7%, so it is awesome. And then any modifiers to claw damage also apply to unarmed attacks. So as well as the crit chance and the attack speed, obviously, as it says. So very, very good there. And now since you can anoint Corrupt Talismans, Rigwald's actually got slightly buffed. So you can put any anoint on this now. So you come over to Cassie, but since it's corrupted, you will need a tainted oil. And I'm not sure on the price of tainted oils at the moment because I made this one weeks ago, but they were about 50c when I made this. And you want to anoint the well, if I can find it. Yep, here it is. Sorry, I am blind. The Claws of the Pride, and Claws of the Pride is also very cheap with 2 violet oils and 1 amber, and it adds a lot for how much it costs. So I would highly recommend getting Claws of the Pride on your amulet. And then moving on from that, the next staple is the Surrender. This is the best in slot, and luckily, since it's so far into the league now, these are quite cheap. If I just quickly price check them, they are 2x now. If you try and get one of these at league start, you know, good luck, because they're about 9x. They are very rare. But as time goes on, they do get cheaper. So it's a great time to try it out now if you want to try it. So pretty much you can't replace this because it gives you level 30 Reckoning as well as recover 250 life on block. And it just gives you so much for what it does. And if you don't know what Reckoning does, it is perform a swift counter attack against enemies in a cone shape when you block with your shield. So every time you block, it's going to slap out this attack, which does tons of damage. Now, it only says on here that it does 189,000. However, in my POB, I think it does something like 2.2 million. So it is obviously a very big thing. And if you just block everything, mobs will just basically kill themselves from you blocking. So it's actually really cool. So yeah, that's kind of irreplaceable. And then our best in slot bout is the Raslava's Coil for absolute damage. Obviously, you can use the Headhunter if you want to clear maps very quickly, if you can afford one. However, the Rastava's Coil is unmatched when it comes to overall damage. So you want to pick them up with these rolls here, which would be 30% less minimum and 40% more maximum. But those are very, very expensive, to be honest. They are about 12x for the maximum rolls. So don't worry about it too much if you can't afford it, but if you can, definitely pick up one with max rolls. And then my one I've corrupted and luckily hit all Ellie Res in it, which makes this one very expensive. But don't worry about the corruption either too much. So that about covers all of the uniques on the build. So I'll go on to my rares now, and I will offer you some slightly cheaper alternatives, I guess. But for the most part, starting with my chest. My chest is a double elevated Warlord and Hunter chest, with the suckered attacks have minus mana cost, and attacks have percent chance to critical strike chance. So these chests are actually great for crafting them, because you can make these chests yourself, and since both of the influence modifiers are suffixes, you can, if you were to roll only 2 suffixes, you can then block the last suffix with whatever you want, and then you can do harvest over and over until you get re-roll keeping suffixes, and then you can roll something like this tier 1 max life, or, you know, whatever you want. So they're very nice to craft on, and obviously these things are very expensive. Sorry, my voice is going there. So these things are very expensive, and if you can't afford one of these, don't worry too much about it. You can get a normal one. I think the normal suckered attacks have minus 15 to total mana cost, and they don't have the avoid interruption from stuns. And the attacks have 1.01 to 1.5 crit chance. Those cost about 9 exalts. Now, if you can't afford that, the alternative would be a Carcass Jack, which is also very cheap. I think about 3x for a 6-linked one right now. So that should also do you fine. And if you can't afford that, just go with a chest, well, like a Tabula, or just any 6-link with life and resist on it. However, if you cannot afford the Astral Plate with the minus cost, you will definitely need Leech somewhere on your build, be it on your ring, on a jewel, wherever. You will definitely need Mana Leech, or you will just run out of mana too much. So this chest is very convenient to have. Now, moving on from the chest, let's go to the boots, I guess, which are also very expensive on this build. So the ones I'm using are double elevated elusive Tailwind with crafted move speed that grants onslaught, and then just a bit of resist. Now, obviously, these are about 30x plus, so unless you can afford these, I would recommend going for either just normal Tailwind elusive, which are about 8 exalts each, and then try to get crafted move speed with onslaught, or the unveiled version, which you can get from Ashling. Or if you can't afford those, you just go for some high res boots with life, and then again still try to craft this onslaught, because onslaught's just so good. And then maybe try and pick up some int on there if possible, and those will do you until you get a bit more. And then for the 2 rings, which is the final thing to talk about on the actual items. For my 1 ring, I'm using a steel ring with tier 1 fizz, crit multi, tier 1 life, and some resistances. Now, this will also be very expensive, and you may find it very tricky to actually hit cap resistances on this build, since we are using so many unique items. So you have to be very careful with your rings. So on this one, I have double res, so it's actually really good. But I wouldn't worry too much about getting something like this. I would really focus on getting max life and a bunch of res until you can really afford to get something like this. And then on this one as well, this is my ring, which you will need a lot of int for, because we are using Castle Channeling level 20, which is 111 int, as well as an Enlighten, which is 96 int. So you will need a bit of int. So getting a ring with int, double res, and tier 1 life like this, it might be a bit pricey. Also, the non-channeling skills have minus mana cost, will be needed for the just to be a little bit more convenient when you're like using your dash and things, because my mana pool is very low, as you will see later on in the video. But yeah, that about covers it. These rings, if you can fit in somewhere else, I think it's quite cheap to get just a 2-stone ring with really, really high resist. So yeah, 127 total res and tier 1 life. Oh, that's not tier 1, sorry. With tier 1 life is about 1020c, so if you can pick up int somewhere else on your beats or something, that would be absolutely fine to just go over a ring like that, preferably with fizz damage on it. But yeah, that's absolutely fine. And for the flasks, we go for a Divine Life Flask with just anything on it that you want. I've got immune to Ignite, because Ignite can kill us. I've also got a Bottle of Faith, which is the more expensive flask. Now, if you can't afford a Bottle of Faith, that's fine. You can just fill it with whatever you prefer, to be honest. Be it like, I don't know, a Granite flask for more armor, or the Basalt flask for less fizz damage taken. It doesn't really matter. But this is obviously very, very good because it gives us a huge critical strike chance against enemies on cunt ground. So, being a crit build, it gives us a lot more damage. And then the Lion's Roar is very good, 25% more fizz damage during effect, so this gives tons of damage as well. And you're definitely going to need a Diamond Flask for the critical strike lucky chance. So yeah, and then always a Quicksilver, just with whatever you want on it. I've got immune to bleed on this because, you know, bleeding is physical and it does quite a bit of damage. So yeah, make sure you grab one of those. That pretty much covers it for the gear, so I'm going to just jump into the next one, so one sec. Okay guys, so jumping into the passive skill tree. Now, unlike most other builds in Path of Exile, this one does not use any cluster jewels, so you won't have to fork out for those. But unfortunately, it does use quite a lot of expensive jewels in the tree itself. Now, if you want to level this build, I would recommend never trying this build at League Start because Cyclone sucks at League Start. But if you want to try it now, it's just pretty standard stuff. You can just buy a Tabula and, you know, the Facebreakers themselves and just level it up. So you just want to pick up the max block nodes as you would for a normal max block build. Pretty much just follow the path of building. It's really simple. And Swift Skewering and Forceful Skewering as well for big damage. You just want to come over here as well, take Aggressive Bastion, Solidity, and Disemboweling and Dismembering are also very good because we are crit multi-stacking. And also this is fine because we're taking Fortify as well. So yeah, I'm not going to go too much about leveling the skill tree because I'm just going to put the path of building down in the description. But I will cover the jewels quite in depth. So, starting up here, this is our most expensive jewel, and it is the Unnatural Instinct. Now, if you do not have the Unnatural Instinct, you cannot get 79% block. It's just flat out impossible, because if you look at the stats the Unnatural Instinct gives us, it gives us 6% chance to block, a bunch of resist, move speed, strength, fizz damage, dex. It is literally just the best jewel that we can slot into this position over here. Unfortunately, they are very expensive. They are about 12 Exalted Orbs at the moment. So if you can't afford this, don't worry too much. Just pick up a normal one with crit multi, life, accuracy, or double crit multi if you can afford that. And when you put this in, guys, just make sure you go up with the projectile damage here, because this will make any allocated small passives grant nothing. So this is useless anyway. So just make sure you know to do that. Moving on, I will go over my normal jewels now. So over here, I have a double crit multi-jewel with max life and a chance to block spell damage, which is useless. So the double multi-max life are the best jewels that you can get that are the normal ones. But these are quite expensive. I believe this one cost me around 4 Exalted Orbs. So just be wary of that. If you can't afford this, it's fine, guys. Don't worry too much. Just get one with like one multi-modifier as well as max life. And maybe try squeeze some accuracy in there as well if you need it. If you're using level 21 precision, you might not need it. But if you do, just try and get that as an additional stat. And those will be a bit cheaper. As you can see, I'm not using a bunch of those double multi ones. Over here, I've got a single multi max life with accuracy, as I said. This cost me around 1x, so they should be around that in price, I believe. And then over here, I'm just using a Corrupted Blood Jewel, which you will probably need as well, because Corrupted Blood can kill us quite quickly. As well as a +1 chance to block attack damage to hit my 79. I believe the Unnatural Instinct puts me up to 78, and this pushes me to 79. So, yeah. If you get a Corrupted Blood Jewel, the least thing you need is max life on it. If you can just buy one of those, they're very cheap. And then, obviously, if you want the additional stats, then it'll get a bit more pricey, but it's well worth it. So coming over to the last two jewels now, we have a Watcher's Eye. And guys, don't look at this jewel and think you need this, okay? I just got this just for a bit faster boss DPS, but in all actuality, you don't actually need the Watcher's Eye. Now, I'm using double precision with attack speed and attack damage, and this is around 30 exalts at the moment. But you can drop this for another double crit multi-jewel with life if you want a cheaper variant. Or again, if you can't afford that, just go with a normal one like this one, and that will also be fine. This is not very necessary, just if you want to min-max damage. And obviously the best in slot would be a triple precision with a crit multi on it as well as the other two modifiers, but that will be over a mirror, so probably not worth to buy it. And then our final jewel is the Transcendent Flesh, as we are stacking crit multi. Transcendent Flesh gives us, as you can see down there, 49% to critical strike multiplier, which is a pretty insane amount. So if you can get one of these, I believe they're about 2 to 3x at the moment. These are very good, and they always need to be slotted in this slot over here, because this is where all of our unallocated strength is. So it's, yeah, very powerful jewel. And yeah, as far as the tree goes, guys, that is about it. Path of Building will be in the description, so you can follow it and check out my gear and whatnot. So yeah, moving on. Okay, guys, so very quickly, I forgot to mention the Ascendancy. We are a Gladiator because we are a max block build, and then you just want to go up to Pain Forge, which gives you 8% chance to block attack damage if you were damaged by a hit recently. You cannot be stunned by hits you block, and your counter attacks deal double damage. So this makes our Reckoning do loads of damage, so that's very cool. And then you want to come down to Versatile Combatant, which gives you the chance to block spell damage is equal to chance to block attack damage. So this makes us very hard to kill. So this is a great node for defense. And then also, you go for Violent Retaliation after that, 4% maximum chance to block attack damage, which lets us hit the 79%. And then every time you block, you get 8% increased fizz damage for every time you've blocked in the past 10 seconds, or 80% increased fizz damage if you've blocked damage from a unique enemy in the past 10 seconds, and 1% chance to block attack damage for each time you've blocked in the past 10 seconds. So yeah, Violent Retaliation is also very good, and the fizz damage does stack up when you're doing maps. Like things like ultimatums, you block so much, you'll get like, I don't know, 15, 20 blocks, and you'll do loads of damage thanks to this. And then finally, the other two are kind of useless for us, so we go for Arena Challenger, which we are using the Blood and Sand stance anyway. So as you can see, 2% more attack and move speed per Challenger charge, 25% chance to gain a Challenger charge when you hit a rare or unique enemy while in Blood stance, gain a Challenger charge when you kill an enemy while in Sand stance, and plus 10 to maximum Challenger charges. So this is also very nice for a bit of a bit more DPS overall and move speed. So yeah, very cool there. And yeah, that's about it for the Ascendancy. It's just very simple max block stuff. So moving on. Okay guys, so for the gem setup, we are going with Cyclone in our 6th link with Awaken Melee Physical Damage support. Yeah, if you can't afford the Awaken Melee Fizz, feel free to just use the normal one. It doesn't matter too much. I bricked the quality on this one, unfortunately, so that's a major feels bad on me. Moving on to the next one, we have Fortify, so we're always spinning and hitting things. Fortify gives us loads of melee damage as well as good defense, so this is like one of the best gems you can have with this setup. I'm using Divergent, but it doesn't really matter whether you're using the normal one or whatever you prefer. On the next one, Impale, we are Cyclone, so yeah, Impale is a must-have. Gives us a ton of damage. So yeah, can't really skip that one. 2120 I have, and try and get that if you can. Quite expensive as well, but should be fine. Infused channeling support, we are always channeling our Cyclone, so we have the defensive layer, which is nice, as well as dealing more damage. So infused channeling is perfect. This is why you'll probably need a lot of int, because as you can see, it costs 111 int. So yeah, you want to try and get this as high as possible. And then lastly, Awaken Brutality, you know, with pure fizz, so 64% more physical damage is a lot of DPS. And then Awakened is obviously great as well, because it gives you overwhelmed fizz damage reduction as well as increased fizz. But again, if you can't afford the Awaken Brutality, just grab a normal one and that should be fine. Moving on, in my boots is my movement setup plus Enduring Cry, so I have Dash, the Second Wind Classic with Enduring Cry. And I also have my Blood Rage in here. And if you can afford it, feel free to get Anomalous Blood Rage, because I believe Anomalous gives you Frenzy Charges on boss. So we don't really have a way to generate Frenzy Charges aside from killing mobs with Blood Rage. So Anomalous for the bosses would be great. But I personally don't really think it's required, because we have quite a lot of DPS without the Frenzy Charges anyway. But if you're min-maxing, you might as well, I guess. So for Enduring Cry, you can, if you struggle to use it, like I have it down here. So if you struggle to use this, you can put it on your move button, and then it'll just activate without interrupting you at all, since we have the Instant War Cries Call to Arms passive down here. So this is a nice little tip if you're not very comfortable pressing many buttons. But in my opinion, you should definitely try to learn to use this manually, because it's so good. If you can, oh, fuck me, if you can use it at the right time. So moving on, Facebreaker setup, we have Herald of Purity and Flesh and Stone with Precision level 20. Preferably would prefer 21. But yeah, I took Divergent because it gives me more damage, and the normal Precision quality effect is absolutely useless. which just gives more AoE, which we don't care about. And then you must have an Enlightened Fort in this build, because I'm also using more auras that aren't in that setup. And as you can see from this banner, this total mana pool down here, it is absolutely pathetic. Sitting at 32 mana, so, you know, definitely need an Enlightened Fort, unfortunately. And then in the helmet, we're using Dread Banner with the Blood and Sand. So when you're doing bosses, you want to be in the Blood stance, which makes your AoE less, but your damage more. And then once you're clearing, you just activate it like that. And as you can see, the AoE is substantially bigger. So definitely very nice. As well as the Sand stance also gives you blind. So a lot more defensive layer form mapping, which is great. And then over here we have a cast when damage taken and a mortal core setup, level 1 and level 3 only, because we don't want to get hit too hard, because we'll probably die if we do. So if you don't know how to put them down here, which is a very simple thing, once they pop up here, you can just right click the little plus sign instead of left clicking it, and it will just put them down here, so you don't have to see them anymore. So it's very convenient. It took me a while to figure that out when I first started, so I thought I would mention that, as it really drove me nuts. And then for our last thing is the Surrender. So our Surrender gives us Reckoning. So for my Surrender links, I have my Ancestral War Chief in here, which increases our damage greatly. So you always want to put these War Chiefs out when you're like doing a boss or something, and they will increase your DPS. So you can see we're at 977k tooltip right now. And then once this guy like goes away, 829. So they add a substantial amount, especially the Vol variant. So yeah, Ancestral War Chief in here, and then I've equipped it with Culling Strike, which also applies to the Reckoning, and also Brutality. Now, if you don't care about your damage from Reckoning and you do just want Culling, you can put Life Gain on here as well, which will give you a lot more survivability, because when it procs, you will get loads of life. So it's up to you. You can also drop Culling for Awakened, for increased AoE as well, I guess, but it's not really necessary, to be honest, as most things that are going to be hitting you will just die to the Cyclone anyway. So that about covers it for the gem links. As for the rest of the stuff, so the Pantheons that I use are Soul of Arakali with reduced damage taken from damage over time, as well as Soul of Shikari for reduced chaos damage taken. If you look at my resists here, we have absolutely abysmal chaos res because we're using so many uniques. So those do help a bit. And the main weakness of this build is damage over time effects, because we cannot block them. So it's very useful. For the bandits, I killed them all. However, you could also go for a Lyra if you get to a high enough level. So at the moment, I am just taking the Constitutional Life Wheel. So I could, if I was level 100, I could technically drop the 2 points, which would sacrifice 10% life, and take the Lyra, which gives crit multi-mana regen and elemental resist, which is also very nice. However, unless you're at level 100, I would definitely recommend taking the bandits, killing all the bandits for that. So I believe I've covered everything. If I've missed anything, guys, feel free to let me know, and I will try and reply to your comment in the comment section. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not really going to upgrade this build anymore, as it can already do all of the content. But I am making a new build, so maybe I'll do a guide for that one soon. It's going to take a while. It's a bit of a peg build, to be honest. So I will catch you next time, guys. And yeah, take care. Peace.